also have a webinar that we recorded that we can blast out to everybody. So that's an option as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click sign in, and I'm brought directly into my dotloop account here. Now, a few things that tell me that I am in a properly set up account is I do see Samson Properties at the top left, and I also see premium. So thanks to this partnership between Samson Properties and dotloop, you guys have access to all of dotloop's premium bells and whistles. They have actually elected to get the very top level product suite that dotloop has to offer. So you guys have every single feature that dotloop has today, and you will automatically get all new features that we come out with in the future. So definitely thank them for that. As I mentioned, Coldwell Banker Residential Brokerage doesn't have that level. So you guys are definitely already at an advantage here just by being with Samson Properties. So I've confirmed that I am in a properly set up account. And as I mentioned in the beginning, the first really exciting piece that we'll take a look at is going to be our support resources that are available to you. So at the very bottom right of every single dotloop page, we're going to see these two links and some information. The first is our Help Center, which is dotloop's online resource page. Next, we see 513-257-0551. That will contact dotloop's support team based in Cincinnati, Ohio. One thing that we definitely pride ourselves on is that we do not outsource our support in any way. We do not send you to some giant call center where they pull out the dotloop script and read some generic talk track to you. You will be speaking to dotloop employees in our headquarter office in Cincinnati, Ohio. And that's something that a lot of tech companies do not do today, so that's one reason why we definitely pride ourselves on that. Now, when you do call into our support team, the phone system will ask one question, and that is, if you know your member ID, please enter it now. Everybody's member ID can be found at the very bottom right-hand corner. You don't want to write mine down because it'll make it look like I'm calling in, and they probably won't pick up. So you'll see your own, and by entering that member ID, two different things will happen. One, you will be rerouted to our VIP support, so you'll actually bypass other callers, get that immediate assistance, and so you can get an answer and move on with your day. The second thing that this will do is it will help our support team locate your account in the event that they need to look at exactly what you're looking at. So that, again, you're not getting some general walkthrough. They will be able to see exactly what you're seeing so that they can provide the best assistance possible. So that's our support team. On the handout that you guys have, I did put the hours on there at the bottom. They are available 8 a.m. to midnight, Monday through Friday, and Saturdays and Sundays, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. We are looking to extend those to 24 hours, but not wanting to outsource our support definitely makes scaling to that take a little bit more time. Okay? That is all Eastern Standard. Yes. So, bless you, whoever that was. So, yeah. So the other link that we have here is our Help Center. And let's say that it's 3 a.m. in the morning, or maybe you're having a bad day and you don't want to talk to anybody on the phone. I get it. It happens to the best of us. You can definitely check out our online support site where we have sections for you guys, the agents. If you're on a team, more information on teams. If your clients want to learn more, they can. If you want to find some recorded webinars, some training manuals, some videos, you can come to the training section. So for those that prefer to read how to learn or those that like to watch to learn, we have both of those options available to you, dependent on how you prefer to learn something new.
And mobile too, which is big.
And mobile. Yeah, so we do have mobile apps, and we have all of the information on here as well for you on how to get those apps, how to use them in the field with dotloop at your fingertips. So the other really important thing here is the search bar where I can come and ask a question. So I can say, how do I sign? And dotloop will find you a helpful article on e-signing. So this is a full article on exactly how to e-sign, from how your clients sign to how you can set up signatures, how to host in-person signing. That was all just from searching my question. So 80% of the calls that our team gets every single day, they've reported that those 80% of the calls can be answered through our support site. So never feel like you have to call somebody. You should definitely be able to find the answer through our support site. Again, all of that is located at the very bottom right of every single dotloop page. Now, the reason I go through that in the very beginning, I know that it's not exciting at all. but know that they're there. We know that people will have questions. We know that everybody learns at a different pace. That is why we've invested a lot of time, energy, and money into building these things for you guys, okay? We know that change is not fun, and I'm sure some of you guys are sitting there saying, Evan, you have no idea how hard change is. You seem like you're in your mid-20s, hopefully. You work for a startup, you're a millennial, you're this and you're that. You have no idea how hard change is when it comes to technology. And to some degree, that is correct. But something that I've been going through for the past 18 months now, which I just realized it's been that long, is change in technology that I'm still struggling through. And I'll explain the reason why I think. So about 18 months ago, all dotloop employees had to move from Gmail to Outlook. We could not use Gmail for our company emails anymore. Now, all of you guys can use whatever email you use. This is internally for the employees. We were no longer allowed to use Gmail. Does anybody use Outlook here? Yeah, me too. You'll learn that. Do you guys like it? So some people love it. I love Gmail. I use Gmail for my personal email. I had used Gmail for dotloop. I knew every little trick. I knew the calendar, the ins and outs. I knew everything there was to know about Gmail. And then one Friday afternoon, everyone got that email, hey, at the end of the day, we're switching to Outlook, which never do that on a Friday before the weekend. I thought that was pretty intelligent. But I was open to it. I said, great, this is going to be easy. It's email and a calendar. How hard can that be? And here we are today, 18 months later. There's still things that I struggle with, still things that really tick me off about it. One thing in particular is I do a lot of traveling. I mentioned I'm on the road a lot doing these trainings, rolling out dotloop for a lot of these companies. So I'm constantly switching time zones. And in Outlook, they don't automatically update the calendar time zone. So there have been times where I've missed meetings. I've missed presenting webinars and trainings because my calendar's on Central and I'm on Eastern. And it makes me look like kind of a jerk. And I can't call up Microsoft and say, hey, can someone walk me through some way, somehow, making my calendar automatically update to this? I don't even think they have a helpline that you can call. Their support site, you search like how to create an email and it gives you a page that long. I don't have time to read that. So I think that part of this negative experience with switching from Gmail to Outlook directly comes from not having the support or the resources that I need to learn how to maximize my use in their system, right? Microsoft doesn't care about me. I'm just another user under a corporate deal. They could care less about my experience, right? Whereas dotloop, we have these things because we care about your experience. We care about dotloop impacting your business in a positive way, okay? So long-winded explanation on support resources. Pretty fun, I know. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is loops. So who can guess what a loop is in dotloop? Yep, transaction, a file, an online workplace. It's all of those things. Within a loop, you're going to have all of your transactional information, your documents, your contact information, your checklist that you're used to using. Now, where dotloop takes it a step further is not only are you going to have all of that information in there, but you're also going to have all of the tools you would need. So the ability to auto-populate and fill out your documents, the ability to e-sign as the agent and share to get signatures from your clients, the ability to turn in everything to Cynthia, the ability to print, download, or even fax documents out of the system. So even tools that you may have never thought of needing, we've built into dotloop, and hopefully I can show you some of those today. So the next question that I have for you all is, how do you think I create a new loop? Exactly. It's that easy. The reason it's not old, it's seasoned, right? So the reason I ask that kind of silly question is if you see a button somewhere and you think that it does something, it's more than likely going to do exactly what you think. Try not to overthink it. Don't think that we're trying to confuse you anyway. We see a giant plus sign on the loops page, we click it, and sure enough, it tells us we're about to create a loop. And here's another reminder, a loop is a workplace for your transactions or projects. You can name it whatever you'd like. We ask that you name it the full property address. It's going to be the easiest for you to find later. It's going to be the easiest for Cynthia to locate at any time. Now, if you're representing some buyers, you don't have a property picked out yet, you can always name it the buyer's names and then change it to the property address once they have a property picked out, okay? And you guys are a part of MRIS, you said?
Yes.
So we will have an MLS feed. I actually just got an email during the break. Within the next 60 days, you'll be able to fill in the MLS number. We'll pull in all of that MLS data, okay? So similar to zip forms.
Question on that.
Yes?
Are you just doing MRIS, Northern Virginia, or will there be forms for Washington?
All the forms will be in here.
Yeah. So all of the forms are in here, which will show you. The MRIS piece was specifically for the MLS information. Yeah. And we'll show you how to get access to all of those forms when you're working in here. So I'm going to say I'm doing a listing on 227 South Shore Drive. And I'll actually do it here in Chantilly. I don't think that's a real address or a real zip code, but for the sake of the training, this is my address we're doing a listing on. So I've put the address here. I also see the option to select a template. So here we see the NVAR listing and purchases, NVAR rental, VAR listing, MAR listing. We're going to build out the rest of those VAR and MAR templates. I need to work with Mike on that. So those should come out in, let's say, before the end of the week here. Now, we're doing a Northern Virginia residential listing, so I'm going to choose that template. So once I choose that template and I create my loop, the benefit of selecting that particular template is as soon as I come into my transaction, all of those documents that I would need are here, including that commission disbursement. We see our different service providers for mortgage and title, and we also see the listing file checklist that we would normally use for this transaction. So from the very beginning, I don't have to think about going and fetching these things or going through this library to find my forms. Everything is set up for me from the very beginning, already saving us some time. So that's creating a loop. The next thing that I'll go through is the different sections of each loop that you create. So the first section is always going to be the documents, where anything you add is private until shared. So just like today outside of dotloop, you are in full control over who sees what and when. There's that confidentiality there. dotloop has been built around that principle, okay? So what you're used to today should be how dotloop works. So anything you add is private until shared. Even if I add in my seller at this point, my seller will not be able to see any of these documents until I choose otherwise, okay? Now, we're going to work with documents in a little bit, but at any time throughout this transaction, I, of course, always have the option of adding additional documents. So on the right-hand side, we see Add Document. When I click Add Document, there are 3 different ways to add documents to a loop. Starting from the left, we have templates. So when you think of templates, think interactive documents. So when I click on templates, I see all of the Samson property forms. I see GBBR, MAR, NVAR, and I can go in and search for a particular addendum or whatever it may be, and I can add that to my loop at any time. So the templates is the interactive library of forms. We'll show you what working with interactive forms looks like in a little bit here.
I have a quick question.
Yes,
Would I be able to add documents on my mobile app?
you can. Yep.
I tried it. It didn't work on my mobile app just now.
So the question was, can you add documents from your mobile app and you're using the actual dotloop app? Yeah. So there's a way to pull it in from Dropbox, Google Drive. A lot of our smartphones, though, don't have a filing system on them. So you can't actually download a PDF onto your device and then upload it. So there are other ways to get a document, let's say from your email, into a loop. And I'll show you that here. So the second option for adding documents to a loop is to browse your computer. So everybody knows how to attach something to an email. You click the little paperclip, it opens up your files. You can go in and grab one or as many as you need and drop them into that email. This is the same exact experience. Instead of the paperclip, we click browse, opens up our files, we go and select those files we need. Now the third option is the ability to email files into a loop. So this can be used when the home inspector sends you their inspection report. When, we'll actually do this scenario today, when another agent sends you an offer via email because they're using pen and a paper. Or even when you scan in paperwork, most of our scanners are set up to email us a PDF copy of what's been scanned. Once it's in our inbox, we can just push it right into dotloop. So cutting out those steps of downloading and uploading it manually, or trying to do that on a phone, on our smartphone, we can just push it right into dotloop from our inbox. Okay?
Does it matter what mail you're using?
It does not. No. So the question was, does it matter what email you're using? It does not. The story I told in the beginning about Gmail and Outlook, that was just for dotloop employees using internally for our daily operations.
So once I get a signed contract from an agent, I can pull it in by going into email?
You can, yeah. And we'll show you that.
Okay.
I usually save it closer to the end so that
Okay.
hopefully people don't walk out because it is a cool feature. So yeah, we'll cover that closer to the end once we get to what happens when you get an offer or someone emails you a PDF. Yeah. So that's the documents section. Again, we can add documents at any time. We'll talk more about working with documents here in a moment. The next section that we come to is part of our people section, and we see local service providers. When we click on mortgage, we see the different mortgage reps for Heritage that we can connect with. Now I'm set up under the Chantilly office. That is why we are seeing those reps here. If you are out of the Tyson's office or any of the other offices, you will see the reps that you're used to seeing. Okay? So they've been built into the system as well as Mary with title. So if I am using Cardinal Title on this deal, all I have to do is click where it says escrow title. I can include a note for Mary saying, hey, my client chose Cardinal. Please give them a call, or whatever you would normally communicate when that's been decided. And I can click request info. That will email Mary and it will also add her to the loop. Now we are using the contracts at cardinaltitlegroup.com for her email address. So instead of having to add this to the loop or download the contract and send it to that email, I can just add her by clicking that title option. Okay?
Evan,
Yes.
can we add Mary as a separate contact under her name? In other words, if an agent wants to have Mary Klotz and her individual email address as a contact in the system, she's named under this one, but it's a different address.
We can. So
Or just
Yeah,
email her separately?
I can. I think what we probably should do is just change Mary's name to Cardinal Title Group. So it looks like you're just adding Cardinal Title
Yeah.
Group. It's probably more confusing than it says Mary's name.
I would agree. I like that idea.
This is
Yeah.
for Donnie. I didn't see any Samson affiliated business forms attached to that listing at all.
Should be. If you go back in there, it should be in there. If not, then we'll make sure it's in there, but it should be
Which form was it?
I know it's in our master list.
Is there gonna be a point
make
of
sure it's in there.
contact at
Okay.
Samson for how the internal, stuff is gonna work? Who's gonna be the point of contact to call with questions?
If you have
regarding
questions, you can talk to me, Cheryl.
Donnie,
Yep.
you're gonna be busy.
Talk to Doris.
Awesome.
More people, Mayor?
Yes, so I'll get to
So
that.
if I'm using
Yeah.
the First Heritage, but a different person, so I can.
Yes, yeah. So what I just showed you is the local service providers, which will show all of Samson Properties' preferred third parties for you to use. Now, when we scroll down a little bit further, we also come to the rest of the people section where we can invite our clients, additional vendors, even the other side of the negotiation. And the reason we're able to do all that is because no one can see who you invite. So even if I add my seller to the loop and I later add in John Doe, whose clients are making an offer, John Doe will never be able to message or share anything directly with my sellers. Everything still has to go through me as the listing agent. So again, the same way that operates today, dotloop respects that, and we've built dotloop around that. So to add another person, if you haven't guessed it yet, I just click Add Person, and I can add my client, Sally Seller, with her name and her email address. Now I've worked with Sally before, so her information does appear for me. I can select her, and then I also need to assign a role. So we're going to be telling the system who Sally is, and we'll talk about the importance of this here in a little bit. But as I scroll through this list of roles, we can see that we do have the option of adding a different title person, a different inspector, security, the insurance rep, the loan officer, loan processor, all the way down to others. So anybody, truly anybody that is collaborating on this deal, you can add them to the loop so that everything's in one place for you and everything's in one place for your client as well. Okay? Now, Sally's my seller, so I'm going to choose seller. And if I wanted to include some additional contact information, I definitely could. But at the very bare minimum, I need a name, email, and role, and then I'll click Add Person. So Sally's now a part of my loop. She is recognized as the seller. So that is our people section. We can add people at any time. If we need to edit these people's information or remove them from the loop, just click the 3 dots to the right of their name, and you'll see those options. Okay? So if you misspell a name or an email, you can always fix that. So the third and final section of every loop is going to be our tasks, where we can use these tasks to coordinate activities with ourselves or with others. As you'll see here, we do have your standard listing file checklist that you would normally use, except it's built right into the loop. So as you complete things, you can check those items off. Now, in addition to having this checklist here, I can also add additional tasks to this checklist that might be specific to this property. Like make sure to turn in paperwork, grab a cup of coffee, and maybe I always forget to pick up my kids from soccer practice, so I'm going to make myself a reminder of that. So we see these different tasks that you do have the ability to add. You can always drag them up and down. But more importantly, you can assign due dates to these. So to the very right of each task, we have the option of assigning them to people. So if I want my client to do something, or if I'm working on a team and one of us needs to do one thing while the other person does the other, we can assign these tasks to one another. We can also assign due dates. So coffee, I actually already got one. I actually got tea. I know you guys really care about that. But maybe I want to make a reminder for tomorrow to make sure that I turn in my paperwork. So I can assign January 10th to make sure paperwork's turned in. And maybe soccer practice is on Thursdays, and that was last Thursday. I forgot to pick them up. So we'll see that we can assign any due date to any task. Any task that is overdue will automatically be the color red. So when we come into this loop, we see red, we get that immediate visual cue. There's something that needs to be done here. Now, the other thing that is tied to these due dates are emails that we send out that will be your task summary. I forget exactly what we call it, but it's one email that will summarize, okay, here are your 5 transactions you're working on. These tasks are due today. These tasks are overdue on property 1, on property 2. These tasks are due today. These tasks are due tomorrow. So you'll always have that. On Thursday morning, I would have received an email letting me know on 227 South Shore Drive I need to pick up my kids from soccer practice. Friday, I would have received a similar email, hey, you forgot to pick up your kids from soccer. Might want to call social services or your wife, get that figured out. One question that does come up is, does this sync with your Google or your calendars that you're using today? Right now, we don't have the ability to sync them, but that is something that we're working on this year in 2017, is the ability to connect your calendar to this section, because we did find that people are more likely to look at their calendar every day than they might be to look at the task section in dotloop. So that is something we're working towards. So before we get into filling out our documents, sharing our documents, etc., any questions about the layout of the loop, documents, people, or tasks?
Once you put people in and title them, they're forever gonna populate automatically in the future. And then when they get a form, say they're the seller, will they auto tab so that you don't have to drag and?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and we'll show you that once we start working with the forms. And the question was, if anybody missed it, was related to DocuSign, I'm sure, where with DocuSign you have to drag and drop those places for each person to sign. In dotloop, it's a little bit different. For the interactive forms, we've already set up the documents to know who needs to sign where. And that's one reason we assign those roles, is we know the seller needs to initial at the bottom of the page. Because we assigned Sally as the seller, that's going to auto tag Sally as that person that needs to sign. And we'll show you that once we get into these documents. So With these documents, I can open up each one by clicking on the name of it individually. I can move these up or down if I wanted to. If I wanted to work with all of the documents at once, I could check the box to the left of the folder name. That's going to select all of my forms. If I just want to work with a few documents, I can just check off those few. Now, when I say work with, as soon as I have one document checked off here, we'll see 7 different options appear at the top right of the screen. Starting from the left, we have archive. So this is dotloop's delete feature. In dotloop, you cannot actually permanently delete anything. You can't delete documents or transactions. So instead, we have this idea of archiving, to where it's hidden away, it's out of the way, it's out of sight, out of mind. But if I ever need it again, I can always go back and find it. So it's very similar to the recycling bin on your computer, where you can drop things in there, but you can pull them out if you ever do need them. This could be used for if you get an offer that ends up falling through and you no longer want it in the way, you can archive it so it's out of the way, but it's always still there if you need to go back and find it. Okay? Make a copy allows you to copy documents from one transaction to another or from one folder to another. Where this might come in handy is if I'm in a multi-offer situation, or a couple buying agents reach out to me and they say, hey, we also use dotloop. Can you share the interactive seller's disclosure so I don't have to download it from the MLS? I can make multiple copies of the property disclosure, share one version with this side, one version with this agent, and another version with this agent, so that they each have their own version that their respective clients will sign. Okay? So make a copy. Open will open the documents through dotloop. Share will share them through dotloop. We'll be doing both of those today. But I also want to point out, at any time throughout this process, we can print, download, or fax documents out of the system. So maybe you're somebody that takes pride in handwriting all of your contracts. I had an agent in Arizona that he said, I think his name was Walter, he said, I've been practicing real estate for 40, 50 years, and one of my signature things is how I handwrite my contract. So that's great. Create the loop, just download or print all of the blank versions, do it the way that you want to. So you have that flexibility of moving things in and out of dotloop. We know that we don't live in a perfect world. If a client says, hey, Evan, I just watched that movie Snowden, and the internet's really scaring me, the NSA is watching me, I'm not e-signing, don't feel like you have to force them to e-sign. I can save time filling out these documents in dotloop. I can print them out and then upload them back in later for Cynthia. If you're working with a bank that says you cannot email anything to us, you have to bring a hard copy or you have to fax it, I no longer have to come here to the office. I don't have to drive to that bank's office. I could be in my car, pull out my phone. After I pull over or park somewhere, pull out my phone, open up dotloop, and fax that document over to them. Okay? So a lot of flexibility there. One thing that I forgot to mention in the beginning is a lot of these features that we're going to show you, none of them are required for you to use except for turning in your paperwork to Cynthia. At the end of the day, you need to upload your paperwork and turn it in. The signature tool, the interactive forms, all of these things that we'll show you, don't have to use them. If you're not comfortable using them day one, don't feel like you have to. You can still benefit from the system without using all of the features. One kind of analogy that I like to give is I've got this really expensive laptop here, right? There's a lot of things I can do with this laptop. However, I also have a notepad where I write all of my to-dos. Yes, I could use a task management type software on my computer, but I prefer to write things down and have it tangible, okay? That doesn't mean I don't benefit from this laptop. I'm using different pieces of it dependent on how I like to operate on a day-to-day. One other story with faxing. I don't know why I like to tell it. It has nothing to do with real estate, but I do. I had an agent come up to me after one of the trainings. She was a part of the focus group. She said, Evan, dotloop has changed my life. I don't even know how I did business without it. And then she started telling me a story how she put her son on the school bus in the morning, and her son forgot his permission slip for some field trip that he had. She didn't have time to jump in the car, sit behind 25 different buses, and take it into the school. So she opened up her dotloop app on her phone, took a picture of the permission slip, uploaded it as a PDF into a loop, and then faxed it to the school. So yes, nothing to do with her business, but it's just a cool story to see that the flexibility is there. You can use dotloop outside of the box per se.
Are you saying if I just do a contract like as I usually do with the person and write it out, that I can just upload, download it into there?
You can. Yeah.
And it'll appear exactly as I did it, it's just a copy of.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So the question was, if I write out a contract and I scan it in, can I put it into dotloop? You can. So once it's scanned in, you can upload it from your computer, remember, or you can send it in via email. And it will be put into the loop, then you can turn it in to Cynthia. Does that make sense? Yep.
How do we receive a fax?
So dotloop, we do not allow you to receive a fax. So if you need to do that for whatever reason, I know there are some third-party apps out there that will send you a PDF of what's been faxed, but honestly, faxing is very counterproductive to what dotloop is set out to do. But from hearing things in the field, we learned that there still needs to be a fax out feature. So that's why we built it. If we get enough feedback that says we have to have a way to fax into the system, I'm sure we will build it. But it doesn't come up as often as being able to fax out. Does that make sense?
If you have an e-fax, it comes in as an email and you can just.
Yeah, so if you have an e-fax service that you guys use and it comes in as an email, you can just push it right into dotloop from there. Yep, so those are the different things that you can do when working with documents. As I mentioned, we want to open these up, fill them out before we get them to the client, right? So I've selected these two forms. I will click open. That's going to open both of those documents on one screen for me. Now, anytime that I open a document, an interactive document for the first time, we see here, to save some time, tell us a few things and we'll fill them in for you. All of these fields are optional. So we see the roles again. So seller 1, we already added Sally and we assigned her that role, so Sally is recognized as seller 1. We see sellers 2, 3, and 4. If we had a second seller, we don't have to backtrack. We can go to select them and we can add a person from this page. Okay? So if I forgot to add my second seller, I can certainly add them from here. Now, what happens, or how do I want to start this? So in dotloop, we do require each person signing. They do have to have their own email address. And before you start throwing things or freaking out on me, there are several reasons why. The first reason is liability. 2, security. The email address is a big piece of how we verify someone's identity, and we would never want to be a part of the reason why a husband was able to sign as himself and his wife, gets to closing, wife never knew that the house was being sold, and then everyone has a big issue on their hand. One quick question.
Yeah, from time to time, I do have a husband and wife that use the same email. Will I be able to use the same email for both people and identify them?
No. So,
That's great.
right, so let me finish my spiel here. It gets better. So yes, we require a unique email address for each person signing. It is for your security. It's for dotloop security. It's also for the client security to make sure that there's at least one thing in place that's verifying who they are. The example mentioned, we would hate to have someone commit fraud because our system allowed them to easily commit fraud, right? Number 2, talked about the authentication. In 3, if we think about where our industry is going, we're getting to the point to where each person is eventually going to need their own email address. If we look back to October of 2015 with the RESPA changes, the TRID disclosure, if a lender is going to email or electronically deliver their TRID disclosure to 2 people, each person by law has to have their own email address. So instead of waiting to the lending process to have to deal with creating an email address in order to use email for that, where things are time sensitive, where people are stressed out, why not take care of that ahead of time? Now, with all of that said, I know that we don't live in a perfect world. I know that people will share an email address. Okay? I get it. When this comes up, which I'm sure will come up at least once, I always give the recommendation, give your clients the option. Say, hey guys, to make sure that your signature is secure, dotloop requires that you each have your own email address. Here are your options. Option A, go to Gmail, go to Yahoo, make a free email account, use it to e-sign, and then forget about it if you never want to use it again. That's option A. If you have trouble doing it, do you have a son, a daughter, a nephew, a niece? I'm sure they could do it with their eyes closed. That's option A. Option B, I can print these out. We can meet up. You can drive to the office, sign these things by hand. That is perfectly okay. I have the option to do that. So give them the option. Let them make the decision. If it's easier to jump in the car and drive here than it is to set up a free Gmail account, you have that option.
Can we
Okay?
use also to sign and then download it, upload it in there?
Could you do what now?
You could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to use DocuSign to sign, you can certainly do that. So if you, yeah, and one thing with this, I know that for some it sounds impossible. Going back to, I've been all over the country. There was an agent who, I actually had people cursing at me for this. I didn't build this program, okay? So I don't know why they were cursing at me. But they were really upset, and it's fair to be upset. Well, one of the agents in the focus group stood up in front of the session and she said, guys, I had two 85-year-old people out in Sierra Valley or Sierra, it was in Arizona. It was like an hour and a half away. And neither of them had email. Their daughter went to their house, set them up with an email account each, and they were able to e-sign after never using email ever before. Their daughter showed them how. She sat with them. It is possible. So it is not impossible, but if it's easier to download these things or put everything in DocuSign and take some additional steps, you have that option. We're not forcing you to use dotloop's e-signature tool.
So if the client agrees to just sign it and the hard copy and then give it to me and then I will load it up, or do they still have to create an account? Email account? No more.
No. Yeah, that would just be for signing. But the other thing to remember is with that TRID disclosure, there is that piece there that if a lender is going to be emailing two TRID disclosures, it needs to be to two different emails. Right. Yeah, but if they're selling and buying, right? So yeah, there are reasons for it. I know that, and I don't know if DocuSign put this into play yet, but DocuSign's real estate version, I think it's transaction desks, they're moving to two unique email addresses because of where our industry is going. Okay, so I know it's a hard topic. People do work through it. It's not impossible. If all else fails, print, download, fax, or even move it into DocuSign if you're more comfortable with that. Okay, is that fair? Yeah? Perfect. Awesome. So, now we got through that. The roles here, we see Sally Seller. We talked about adding a second seller if we need to. Then we get down to the listing agent, who is me, Evan Peele. Now, I'm already a part of the loop because I created the loop. So I'll say Evan Peele. And then the broker would be whoever normally signs your listing agreement, dependent on what office or where you work out of. I can add a person, and I'm just going to say that this is going to be Donnie. So I can add Donnie.
So one point here, when you're adding your broker in, put whichever broker you're intending to send stuff to for signature, when it's like listing agreements and stuff, because later it'll tag with the broker signatures there. So for a lot of you, that's Steve. So you're going to want to add whatever broker you're going to add into later to send that for signature in there. Yes, we all know Mike is the managing broker, but we're not sending everything to Mike to sign necessarily.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah. So then we get down to the other information here where we can fill in the full property address again. Again, once we have that MLS feed, this basic MLS information will already be here for you. We'll say that this is in Chantilly, fake zip code, I know. We can add in the parcel ID. There's Sally's information. Maybe we want to include her phone number, so that will auto-populate. We'll say that this is expiring on the 28th. Listing today. Original price is $2 million.
Will you receive a notification when it expires?
You will not. So we won't send you an in-app notification, but that would be a great place to include in your tasks.
Right.
just to say expires, and then put the due date of the expiration date so you get that email reminder.
Listing, it's not the MLS number yet, so we don't have an MLS number. Is there a tax ID number we can put it in that will autofill it with all the property information?
No, not yet.
So there's no MLS number when we're doing a listing agreement yet,
Mm-hmm.
right?
True. I don't know if they'll look at the tax ID or not. I literally just got the email in between this session and
MLS number, so unless you got a tax ID,
Right.
it's really not
right.
autofilling anything, right?
Right, if you're searching by address there. No, once you put in, the only things that would ever autofill are like, you know, some of the other stuff. But what I'm saying is, once you gotta put the address in here, type it in, then it will autofill in all your contracts once you do it. But no, even the MLS isn't gonna have,
Right.
it's not gonna have our
There's no MLS.
information.
Right.
They're the same thing we're doing now. I mean, if you start a listing agreement now, you're not getting a lot put in.
Yeah, great question. So once we have this information in here, again, all of it is optional. So if I don't know the lot, deed page, deed book right now, I can always fill it in later. But I'll go ahead and click autofill. And when I click autofill, we'll see some different information is being populated. And out of that little bit of information I filled in, 24 different fields have been filled in for me, 24 less things that I need to manually fill out. Okay. So from here, I can just simply fill in the blanks. So for the amendment here, I can put in the date with that calendar drop down. I didn't enter an MLS number, and we may not even have one at this point, but I can fill it in here as needed. Here is the full property address, the listed price. We'll say today's date again. So you'll see we have date fields, text boxes, check boxes, everything you would need to fill out these documents. Now, the next thing that we come to is where Sally would normally need to sign, and it says Sally sign here. So dotloop has picked up that we marked Sally as the seller, so anywhere that the seller would need to sign her initial, it's going to automatically assign those fields to her. So I don't have to, again, go through and drag and drop all of those fields.
And also, I just found out, there's, whenever she signs, it dates and puts a time stamp on it, so you don't have to fill in the separate field for date anymore.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I'm actually going to sign this as the agent just to show you what it looks like if you're signing something as the agent. So let's say that I needed to sign this field as Evan Peele. If this was a listing agent field, it would already pick it up and it would automatically be assigned to me, and it would tell me to sign now. So I go to sign now, and it's asking me to adopt my signature. At this point, I can use dotloop's text version, which is just this version here where it's written out. I can also draw my signature, which, as you guys can tell, I'm really talented at. But if you're using a touch screen with your finger or stylus, it's definitely a lot easier, but you do have the option of drawing your signature. Both are equally as valid. The drawn signature just gives you a more personalized feel and look. And with the text version, I do have the option of updating the content of my signature as needed. So if you go by Bob Smith, but when you sign you want it to be Robert G. Smith, you can modify that on the fly. You don't have to backtrack. Now, before we click Adopt and Sign, we see here, I'm sure it's hard to read. By clicking Adopt, I've read and understood dotloop's terms of use, and I agree that my electronic signature and initials have the same force and effect as my written signature or initial. So what that means is I'm adopting this as my legally binding signature. I'm adopting these as my legally binding initials. And once I've confirmed that, I will click Adopt and Sign. Now, once I click Adopt and Sign, we see my signature that I chose is there. And as Cheryl mentioned, we see the date and the time automatically stamped to our signature. Every single signature, every single initial automatically comes with the date and the time based on the time zone that we're in. If I sent this to somebody in California, we would see PST. Because we're on the East Coast, we see EST, etc. Every once in a while, I get the question, how do you backdate a signature? Which you should not be doing. dotloop will not help you bend the rules, as somebody said. This will always be the date and the time that is signed. You can never backdate or predate things. Okay? You shouldn't be doing that anyway. So that is how a signature looks as I'm signing it. And notice, I didn't have to move this document anywhere. I didn't have to fill it out and then save it and then move it to the e-signature side. I'm able to sign it as I'm filling these things out. So when we come down to the listing agreement, we see a lot of this information is filled in for us. Everything looks good. And let's say that Sally gives me a call in between me starting this and finishing it, and she says, you know what, Evan, let's go ahead and list this for $2.5 million. I don't have to start over. I can just go to this list price field. I can change that to $2.5 million and move on. Anywhere else that list price would go, it'll be updated with that $2.5 million for me. Okay?
Is there a save button on this screen? I just don't see it.
At the top.
Yep.
Okay.
Top right, save, and then we also have save and share. But yeah, you can definitely save throughout as you're filling this out.
So how often you recommend the save? Every page?
You can, if you're on a weak internet connection, I would say save as much as you can. I usually just save at the end, but I'm rarely on a.
No autosave.
There's no autosave. There's a hotkey to save, which is similar to Word. It'd be Control, Shift, and S is to save. So I can just hit that on my keyboard, and that will save it, and then I can continue down. Yeah, the only difference is for a Mac, you're using Command. For a PC, you're using Control, Shift, whereas a Mac, you're using their Command button.
I have a question again.
Yes?
When I was doing a listing agreement, I selected, all the different documents. And when I filled out the first form, I had to go back and then select the second form to fill it in. It doesn't automatically keep all the forms on the screen together that I'm filling out.
As long as you check them all off and open them all at the same time, it should.
It didn't do that.
Okay, we can always take a look afterwards.
Yeah.
But it should open, if you select all of the forms and click open, it should open all of those, yeah.
Before you open and share, all the checkboxes on the left should be whichever one you want to open together.
I checked them all, but it only opened the one document. I had to go back and then select it for some reason. So,
Yeah, we can take a look at that,
Okay.
because that should not happen. So as we're scrolling through this document, we will see SS. So again, the seller would normally need to initial here. SS stands for Sally the seller. This is showing us if we share this with Sally, she will be prompted to initial in that box if we give her permission to sign. So we'll just scroll through here, checking off the things we need to check off, filling in the information we need to. And let me try to find, might not be on this form. So any questions about filling out the documents? This should be very similar to what you guys are used to with just having things clickable in the actual document here.
Don't you think it's a little confusing that it says you have one seller,
Mm-hmm.
but you get a blank that's filled out that says seller in the second space every time?
Right.
And so when I get these from someone else, people always ask, try to click it,
Yeah.
you know?
So on the client's end, the client will only see they should only see their respective field. So even though I have one seller here, when I share this with Sally, she should only see and only have the option of initialing this box. Right. Now, if I end up having to, we always want that second one there. So it's always going to be there by default. But when you share it, only the fields that are assigned to that client should appear. And if I had two clients, that second client's initials would be in that second box, letting us know that this is assigned to this specific person.
And if we have 3 clients?
So if you have 3 clients, you can always go to add, and you can add a third initial for that third client. Now, any signature or initial field that you manually add yourself, you do need to tell the system who it is for. So you tell the system who it's for by assigning it. If I forgot to add my third client, I can always add a person from here as well. Okay? So yes, no matter what scenario you find yourself in, there should be a tool in dotloop to help out with that. So as we scroll through, we're just confirming where Sally will be initialing and signing. And everything looks good, great. I can click save, or I can click save and share.
Now, did it bring up all your documents? How many documents did you
I just opened the agreement and the amendment.
Amendment.
Yes.
Is the amendment down there then at the end?
So the amendment was at the top.
I don't know why it's not there. Okay.
Yeah, and we can look at it together. So once I save this, I do have the option of sharing it. If I wasn't ready to share both documents at once, I could go back to my loop and I could just reselect the one document that I want to share. So whatever you have open, if you're sharing from within the documents, it will share everything that you have open. If you want to just share certain documents after you've filled everything out, you would go back to this page, check off those documents you want to share now, and then go through these steps that I'll show you in a minute. Did you have a quick question?
I did, just about adding additional data. Is there, I don't know if there's a field you can,
So,
changes that you make
for example,
to a document, if you want to add something to an existing document or change something?
so you can change text that you fill in here.
I mean, like striking through something and adding.
Yeah.
Do that when, go ahead.
So we have a strike through feature on the interactive fields or the interactive forms and the PDFs. Part of our agreement with these associations is that we do not allow people to add additional text boxes out in the margins or text boxes here. And that is preferred by the association for whatever reason. Now on a PDF, which we will work with in a little bit, in a PDF you do have that option of adding text fields wherever you want and adding fields wherever you need.
So like in zip forms, you couldn't change a document while you were creating it. So right now you're still creating it. If you get an addendum or something back, then yes, you can add text boxes, you can strike through, you can change those PDFs. But you can't add text box to their forms right now. You can write something in the other terms or something, but you can't do that. Yeah, so it's similar in that fashion.
Yeah. Thank you, Donnie.
But you say you can change the font size to make a more available.
Yeah, so if you're trying to fit a bunch of information in this field here and you run out of room, you can always change the font size to be a little bit smaller so you can try to fit more information in there with that smaller font size. So one of the premium features you guys do have access to is changing the font size, the font type, realigning things, making them bold, changing the font color, even highlighting fields if you prefer. So that toolbar appears anytime that you have a text field selected. So we'll see that there. Yep. So I'm just going to go back and not save that. Any other questions about filling out the documents?
When you're doing purchasing,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a long names, then you can shrink the font size, then you do it. You don't have a way of business or expanding. Only way you can do it is reducing font size.
Correct. So the question was, if you have a really long name, company name, do we auto expand the field? We do not. If you run out of room, you just need to bump that font size down, and you should have plenty of room to fit in whatever you need to fit in. Right. Yep. So we're good to go on to sharing? Perfect. So when I'm ready, I can check off those documents that I want to share. I've just selected the 2 documents I filled out, and this time I'll click Share. Again, if my client says I'm not e-signing or I don't have an email address, I can print or download these now filled out documents. But Sally does have an email. I've already spoken with her about dotloop. She's open to using it, so I'm going to share these documents with her. So I go to Share. It's telling me that I'm sharing these 2 forms, and we see Donnie's name and Sally's name automatically checked off. The reason both of their names are checked off is because we saw that Donnie has fields to sign as the broker, and Sally has fields to sign as the seller. If I wasn't ready to share with my broker, I could always uncheck their name and just share with my sellers, but I do have the option of sharing with people simultaneously. So I can share the same documents with as many people as I need to, and the picture that I like to paint with that is I can take a single piece of paper, put it in front of 2 people, and all 3 of us see that one document, right? So if we're sitting at a desk together, I put a piece of paper on the table, we're all seeing that form. So that logic sort of applies in dotloop. So the picture to paint is very similar to the closing table. right? Where you're bringing everybody to the documents in a sense. You're bringing everybody to those closing documents. And you're passing things around saying, well, you take a look at this, initial that. Hey, we made this change. Can you sign off on it? Whatever you're saying. And we've brought those people to the documents. So sharing in dotloop is similar, where we're not sending the document out. So I know with DocuSign specifically, you send it, it goes to seller or signer 1. Once signer 1 signs, then it gets sent to signer 2. And if signer 1 never signs, it never gets to signer 2. And you can run in.
No, that's not true, they changed.
They changed it? Okay. So it gets sent out. Whereas dotloop, our idea was always to bring the people to the documents. So we're going to bring Sally to these documents. We're going to bring Donnie to these documents.
How do you do that?
We'll show you right here, which is very similar to, again, closing table, right? Where everybody comes to the documents.
Do they have to open up a dotloop account in order to do that?
No,
Okay.
and I will cover that, I promise.
Because I saw that that was an option for the seller or the client to open a dotloop account, and I don't want them doing that.
Yeah, it's an option, and we'll show you that, yeah.
I couldn't, somebody invited me before with the transaction and Coldwell Banker. I tried to go into, share that document, want to read it,
Mhm.
and I had to sign in, I had to go in dotloop account, otherwise I couldn't view it. So that's why we.
So there was a short period where if you were the co-agent or co-op agent, you did need to create a password to do things within dotloop. We've since changed that because of that experience that you just mentioned. Yeah.
Just very recent, last month,
Yeah, it was about,
November.
yeah, so about 2-3 months ago, we put that in place for about 30 days. And based on some testing and realizing that it was disrupting that experience, we changed it. Yeah. So I'm going to choose to share with Sally, who has some fields that she needs to sign. And to the right, we see this option of can sign. So these are these different permissions. So we're not only bringing Sally to the document, but we're giving her permission to do something when she gets there. Again, sitting around the closing table, hey, sign this, look at this, fill this out. These permissions do exactly what you might think, but if there's ever any confusion, just hover over each one and we'll give you a quick explanation as to what they're ideal for. So view only, that's ideal for third parties. Mary, when you share the contract with her, you might choose view only. Next we have can sign. This allows that individual to sign anywhere that they were assigned to sign. That is very confusing. So what this means is anywhere that we saw SS or Sally sign here, Sally will be able to sign or initial in those particular fields with this permission.
So how did Sally will see this?
We'll show you that, I promise. Yeah. Next we have can fill and sign. This allows the individual to fill out that document as they're signing it. This might come in handy for lead-based paint, property disclosure, maybe an application that you guys have. And then can edit in private. Now, the way that you guys operate in your market, you will probably never use this permission. This gives full editing rights to that other party. There are some markets where people only work off of the original contract instead of doing amendments, counteroffers, etc. Where you guys are, you probably will never use this permission, but it is there in case you need it. Okay? So we're going to stick with can sign. And before I share this with Sally, I do like to make the note that dotloop is not here to take away from the interactions that you're having with your clients. As hard as it may be sometimes, you should still be having those regular conversations, communicating with them, walking them through the legal jargon that you spend hours learning about in CE. This should not be in between you and your, dotloop should never get in between you and your client. It's a tool to help work better together, not better separately, right? So before I share with Sally, who has never used dotloop, I may give her a call or shoot her a text. Hey, Sally, we talked about e-signing when you were in the office the other day. Are you still open to it? Will you still give it a try so that we can all save ourselves some time? Sally will probably say, you know what, Evan, I'm totally okay with that, but what happens if I change my mind? What happens if I have any trouble? Well, I can tell Sally, don't worry. What I can do is I can attach the PDF versions of what I'm sharing to that email that you'll receive. So we're going to check this box. So these two documents that we're sharing, Sally will have the option of downloading as PDF attachments or going into dotloop and signing. Okay, so we're giving her that option again. We're making it feel like she's more in control of how this document is being completed so that she has a more positive experience working with me. I recommend any third party that you're sharing with, any agent that you're sharing with where you're not sure if they use dotloop or not, I would always check that box off just to avoid that conversation of, what's dotloop? I don't use dotloop. My company doesn't use it. All you have to say is, you don't have to use dotloop. If you don't use dotloop, just download the PDF, put it into the system that you like to use, just get it back to me signed somehow, some way, okay? So attaching the PDF to give them that option or that backup if they need it. I also have the opportunity of entering a custom message if I'd like to. We're going to leave this blank today just so that you can see the default, and we're going to go ahead and click share.
So if you had a buyer's agent, you could add them into the loop and then say attach PDF to email, and it would send them a copy of it once it's signed?
It wouldn't send them a copy that's signed. It would send them the copy exactly as it is right now.
I wouldn't need to do that.
Right. So once you get it back signed, then we could say, let's add that person into the loop and then share it with them
Right.
and attach the PDF. Yeah. And I know in the before we move forward, in the Q&A webinars that we did last week, which the focus group was a part of, a lot of that automatic sharing came up. So there are some systems where once it's signed, it automatically goes to whomever. dotloop's ideology on that was, we want to make sure that you have a chance to do your final once-over before it is automatically ever sent to anybody. So by doing that is by not having it ever automatically sent to anybody, so that you can do your due diligence. Hey, this is what I want, and I'm in control.
I would get it back, I would review it, and then I would add that agent in and then share it with them?
Correct. Yep. Yeah. So I've just shared these two documents. As you see to the right, we see that these are now waiting on others. So on the right-hand side, to the right of each document name, we'll see if it's been shared yet, who it's waiting on, what it's waiting on. So these two documents are waiting on Sally to sign. So now that we've shared these documents, we're going to switch gears and go into Sally's shoes. So now pretend that I am Sally's seller. I am on vacation on a beach somewhere, and I get an email from my agent, Evan Peele. So this doesn't say dotloop has things for you to sign or come into dotloop to sign. To Sally, the seller, it says Evan Peele needs you to do something. So Sally will open up this email, and she could be using her smartphone, her Kindle, her laptop, her tablet, whatever she uses for email, she can use for dotloop. So Sally opens up this email, we see the Samson branding, and we see, welcome to dotloop, Sally. I've shared these two documents for your review. I've put them in this loop for you. So this is the default message. This first line is that default message. If you enter a custom message, this will be replaced with whatever custom message you entered when you were sharing. Okay? We also see the property address, the ability to view those documents, a little bit more about dotloop so that Sally has a better understanding as to what exactly dotloop is. And when we go to where the attachments are usually attached, sure enough, those PDFs are there. They are still signed, so we see that. They're still filled out. But what I do want to point out is anywhere that it said SS or Sally sign here, those fields are now blank. So that if Sally prints out this PDF, she does have a clean place to initial if she's not going to electronically sign. Okay? So these PDF attachments were attached in the event that Sally does not want to e-sign by clicking View Documents, that she would rather print or download these, move them somewhere else, or sign them by hand.
I missed the part where Sally had to sign. Where was that? There was two documents that Sally had to sign, so when she clicks on it, I missed the part where it actually tells her where she needs to go and sign.
Right, we haven't showed you that yet. Yeah, we're going to show you that right now as long as there's not any other questions. No? So remember, when we shared with Sally, one, we gave her a call and said, hey, are you still open to e-signing? She said yes, but what happens if I run into any issues? So that's why we attach these PDFs as a backup just in case. Now, Sally wants to e-sign because she's sitting on the beach enjoying vacation. She doesn't want to have to pack up all of her stuff, go to the hotel, find a printer, find a scanner. So what she'll do is she will click View Documents. As soon as Sally clicks View Documents, she's taken into both of those forms. And as she's scrolling through, she sees this big blue bar at the top of her screen that says Click Start Signing to begin. And to the right, there's a flashing button that says Start Signing. So what Sally will do is she'll click Start Signing, and it takes Sally directly down to that first field that requires her attention. So the system will guide Sally to each field, similar to the little Post-it notes with the X and sign, where you used to put them at the bottom of each page. This is an electronic version of that. Now, if Sally is a client that actually reads and understands everything before she signs it, she does have that ability of scrolling up and scrolling down. And lastly, she should not be confused by seeing the other initial fields. It's just showing her the field that is assigned to her. Quick question.
Now, the attachments, you scroll down a little bit, and if I didn't know whether they had microwave or anything, I didn't fill that in. Sally has option to fill that in at this screen?
No.
So we cannot just send it in without filling it. Sally does not have option to fill that in.
So you can give her the option. When you're sharing, you can give her the option of filling it out. But that should be,
But don't do that.
yeah,
Don't let your buyer start changing it.
right.
No, that's not buyer. I'm talking about seller. Seller, if I.
She's talking about seller, so if a seller goes in there and she has the ability to click, then she can fill out the conveyance forms and click whatever is applicable and how many numbers and all that stuff.
She
Is that
could.
right?
Theoretically, you could give your sellers the
Seller.
ability.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm talking
So if
about.
they
Seller,
just
not
sign,
buyer.
they sign in whatever.
Fill and sign. Yeah.
It's a seller form, so that's why I
So
said
she
yes.
can, yeah.
No problem. She could change anything. She'd be like, oh, commission, I'm going to change that.
Right.
If they were filling for names, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know.
Yeah, the other thing the client can do from here is these three little dots at the very top right. They can go and they can actually send you messages as they're filling out or signing this document. So if Sally has a question as to what she's about to sign, she can send you a quick note through dotloop, or she can pick up the phone, text you, call you, and you guys can walk through it together.
Everybody gets curious,
Yeah.
we can't have Sally to fill in, even listing, right?
What was that?
Seller cannot fill in even if I left the microwave open. Sally cannot do it.
If you give them the
You can
ability
give
to
them
sign,
permission.
edit, then they can.
Yeah. Yeah.
They can edit everything if you want to.
Not
I
everybody.
don't think you want everyone.
Once you send it as edit, then they can edit anything.
Right.
That's the problem. That's what it is.
Yeah.
No, you don't wanna edit everything.
Right. So we see that Sally is taken to the very first field that requires her attention. The system's telling her to click. She clicks to sign, and it's going to ask her to adopt her signature. Now at this point, the same way you as the agent can update your signature, Sally has the same option. If she is a power of attorney over some trust, she can include that. If she's signing on behalf of some corporation, she can include that in her signature. If Sally was married a handful of times and she wanted to include all of those last names, she very well could. And I say that to show that there's no character limit to how long this signature can be. Yes, it will get smaller, so it will fit. But no matter how long somebody's name is, no matter how long a corporation name or a trust fund name is, it is able to fit.
But you cannot power of attorney for the, trust.
Yes, you can. You just have it written out there the way they want to sign it.
Trustee.
Yes, you could write that. You could write Sally or seller,
Yeah.
trustee, or whoever.
Trustee only.
But you would do that as
Gotcha.
an agent when you're filling in their name.
You could do that as well, yeah. Yes, I will show you guys that. Yeah, of course.
Sally Seller Trust.
Yeah. So you could add them originally like that, or if you forget, they can always update that as needed. So just like you, Sally is adopting this as her legally binding signature, these as her legally binding initials. And once we sign the first field, it's going to continue down and take her to the other fields. So it will guide her through. Again, If she wants to scroll up or scroll down, she can certainly do so. Now I'm going to continue through signing everywhere that I need to sign. And once I'm done, we will see I actually forgot an initial on page 5. So I accidentally forgot this initial, but when I finished signing all of these fields, it shot me right back up to that initial field, right? So that there's that fail safe. Hopefully I never forget that. Now, if Sally's looking at this and she says, okay, 11 of 12 fields are completed, for some reason I think that I'm still done, the system will flag her again and say, hey, are you sure you're still missing a field? At this point, Sally can click Show Me, and it takes her right to it. Now, we also saw the option of clicking Skip. So, if your client truly wants to skip that for whatever reason, we give them the opportunity to do so. If a signature or initial is skipped, you will be immediately notified, letting you know Sally has partially signed this document, something's incomplete, so that you can figure out what it was. Say, hey, Sally, why didn't you sign this? Do you not agree to the term, the commission, whatever's written there, right? So she does have the option of skipping, but we do have those two fail safes to make sure that she never accidentally forgets something. So Sally signs this last field. It says you're almost done. Click Finish to finish signing. Sally clicks Finish signing. And at this point, Sally gets a confirmation you are done. These documents have automatically been shared back with Evan Peele. If you'd like to keep secure copies of these documents in dotloop, you can do so by creating a password. Now, this step is not required in any way. I, as Sally Seller, can simply close out and move on with my day. This is still signed. We do not require that clients create accounts, okay? So if they give you a call and they say, hey, it's asking me for a password, what do I do? You can say, hey, you don't need to create an account, just close out. I already got notified. We're good to go, okay?
Why doesn't that box actually says that? Says that, this step is, off and off. So the client doesn't have to call me, then I have to call her back.
Right. Yeah, the language could definitely be worked on, and I know that's feedback we've gotten before. It just hasn't been prioritized to change yet. So I don't make those decisions. I just relay the feedback that we get. But I agree, it could be a little more direct as to what needs to be done.
One of the things that I found out also is, like, I had to add a document later.
Mm-hmm.
And it knew Sally had to sign, but it didn't fill in the managing broker, so I had to go and add that. It was an after the fact adding the document.
Right, so we just updated that document, I think, last week. Because at first, throughout the focus group, if anybody was in that, those broker fields were actually assigned to the listing agent. And there was it needed to actually be assigned to the broker. So we got that feedback, we implemented that change, and now it should be good to go. As to knowing that the broker, whoever you add as the broker needs to sign there. Okay, and we can always take a look at these specifics.
So Sally, after she signs, she can print those, right?
Yes, going to show you that right now. So once Sally has signed, remember Sally did not elect to create an account. She didn't want to remember another password. So if she was ready to print or download this for her own file, she could go to File here, and she could choose to print or download that document. So we tried to use the same verbiage as if I was printing from Word, where I go to File here and then print. Sally can print or download her now signed copy. Now, the other thing that happens is Evan Peele, the agent, and Sally, the seller, get an email letting them know. So for Sally, it says, you have successfully signed this document. Evan Peele, the agent, gets an email that says, Sally has signed this document. Sally can click View Loop here. She'll see those documents that have been shared with her, and she can download or print from here as well. Okay? So there are multiple places to download or print these as the client. Even if a month passes, I can always go back and find the same email, view the loop from the link, and download or print the documents that I've signed or that have been shared with me. And we will see that, so this is the client's view of the loop. We see it's very similar. All the buttons are in the same place. The difference is the branding and what she sees. So we tried to put the buttons in the same place to where if you are on the phone with the client and they say, how do I print this? You know exactly where they need to click based on what's in your account, right?
So we're sending it twice, one for the husband, one for the wife, for example, right? Separately.
So not separately. So one thing that I mentioned is when you're sharing, you can share simultaneously with as many people as needed. So if I wanted this agreement to go to all three of these people at once, and I wanted Donnie and Sally to sign and Mary to see it, I could do that. And again, the example was, if I take a single piece of paper and put it in front of two people, we're all seeing it. We're all seeing it in real time as it's being signed.
I'm confused by that,
Okay.
because obviously the broker doesn't sign till the client signs.
Right.
So when you share it with both of them, is that not the signing?
We could. The broker could sign it first. Why couldn't we sign first?
And this,
I don't know, I mean, you guys usually make sure that you've done everything right before you sign it off.
If it's been sent out to both of our signatures, though, there's no, I mean, there would nothing would prohibit us from signing it for us.
That's how
Put
that
a signing order on
We
it.
don't have to wait.
We don't have to wait.
There's
We've
not.
seen what you filled out. The whole reason we
No.
do it is we want to see how
Yeah.
it's filled out.
I prefer to see it signed by the client first.
right.
But does the system allow for prioritizing order? No. Right?
No. And that goes,
DocuSign does.
right.
That's one difference.
Yeah.
Why can't you share with the client first, have them sign it, and then share with the broker?
Theoretically.
Exactly. Yeah. And the whole idea there is that you get a second chance to see it before it gets shot off to your broker, so your broker doesn't have to say, hey, how come you didn't realize that you were missing a signature here or that this information was missing? So that's our ideology with DocuSign's a little bit different.
Are you guys considering adding that feature as priority?
Not that I'm aware of.
I like to send it to the more tech-savvy person first, and they tell the husband or the wife it's okay.
Right.
I think the priorities are real important,
Yeah.
because if one part, they get upset, and they're gonna, it's nice to have that order.
Right. Yeah, I haven't seen it on our priority roadmaps, not to say that it won't be, but people are still, I've still seen people convert from DocuSign
I guess
to
the
dotloop.
question-
And
The question with the order is, the way we're doing it right now with zip forms and DocuSign, if we put something in and we change a number, like a price, they offer $1 million, we want $1.1 million. So we change that, well, it's changed under like signer 1. If signer 2 gets it first, they're not gonna see it. Signer 1 was the one that made the change. So they may look at it and go, hey, I thought you said 1.1, it's only 1 million.
Just don't
So-
send it out simultaneously.
What do we have to make the change, approve it all, and then send it back out, or?
so you're saying if the client makes a change or if you do?
Client.
Yep.
You and your wife.
Yep.
And we go in and say, under your name, we're changing the name to 1.1. When you sign it, it changes the document to 1.1. But if the wife sees it first, it still says $1 million.
I'll tell you why it's a little bit different. DocuSign, when we would add a text field or a crossout,
Yeah.
you had to assign it to one person.
Right.
You don't have to now. When you come down and just strike through in a text box, it's just a
Everybody
generic
sees it.
strike through a text box. We all see it, so it's actually better.
Yeah.
Because before, only the husband saw the cross out, and the
Yeah.
wife would be like, wait a minute, what's
So
going
you
on?
said,
here?"
right.
Right, so it's a cross out and text box that they both see, and you're just putting two different initials next to it.
Okay.
So they'll always have the same
That's better.
information.
That's better.
Yeah. And the other piece to that is it's always in real time. So if I share it with you and your wife, let's say, and it's the property disclosure, so you fill something out, I and your wife will automatically see that change in real time as it's being made. So that's another big benefit and to the way that we look at sharing,
So
is everybody's always on the same page.
keeping, like, only one person can sign at a time, but everybody's looking at it? Because I'm thinking, like, if somebody's making a change and somebody else is signing it, then there's a change and I have to go back to my broker, say, my client changed this, you had already signed it. Don't let him sign it.
Yeah, so if it's so they'll only be able to change things if you give them permission to do so. So if you're going to give them permission to do so, then say share it with that one person, let them change what they need to change, and then share it with the second person. But and we are getting caught up on this. I know that sharing is very important, but there are some other things we want to show you. So I can stick around afterwards and we can talk about sharing all day if we need to. So is everybody cool with that? Okay.
And then show us how do we create those old-fashioned crossbars next to the section where we,
So you won't need to do that anymore.
so how do we, what's instead of that?
We'll show you. Promise. Yeah. Awesome. So Evan Peele, get an email that these documents have been signed the same way that Sally gets a similar confirmation email. These no longer say that they are waiting on others. So once I have my signed agreements, all of my listing paperwork, what's the usual next step? Turn it into Cynthia, right? Hopefully. So I need to get this to Cynthia today or before dotloop. I'd probably have to download everything, move it into Track My File, go to my Dropbox, my Google Drive, my DocuSign account, and get all of this paperwork together. Now with dotloop, I used this transaction to do all of that stuff already. All of my paperwork that's filled out and signed is already in here. So all that I need to do is go to the top right of the page and click Submit to Review. The system will ask me some basic information. So I never entered the state. And the title company we are using, or we don't have a contract yet. So that looks good. We'll click Next. We'll choose the folder we want to turn in and what type of documents they are. We can also include a helpful message for Cynthia, like this is a short sale, or I forgot to turn this in and it closes tomorrow. Whatever note you want to include, you can. And then we click Submit. So I didn't have to move anything around. I didn't have to add Cynthia to the loop. All I did was click Submit to Review. We see that these things have been submitted. And this now shows signed listing agreement submitted for approval. And this is one thing that we've customized where Cynthia already knows how to go in and that she is notified correctly.
So what we'd like for you to do is on the listing side, you're going to have 2 points of submission. When you have a signed listing agreement, we'd like you to submit it just the way that he did there. That way we've got a signed listing agreement on file with Samson and we're aware of it. The next time for listing you're going to submit it is when everything's done and offer, you're ratified, ready to go to closing. Now I'm submitting it one time. Every time you click submit, Cynthia's notified. It comes up on her dashboard. She can look, see if you're missing anything, and buzz you back. If you submit every single time you have an addendum, it's going to be a little confusing because every time you're going to be like, okay, well, you're missing this, this, and this. So on a purchase, the 2 times you would submit are when you have an earnest money deposit you need to turn in because we need that so we can take the money and put it in. And then not again until you've got your ratified contract, your addendums, your buyer agency agreement, all that kind of stuff. I'm ready to go to closing. It's a week or 2 before. I've got all my paperwork. I'm sending it in. So you're just really submitting the whole file as it is. So then she can review it all, get back to you guys and say, hey, I'm still missing this disclosure. Get this back in and we'll be good to go. So that way you're not submitting stuff every single day. Yes, Cheryl?
Now when we submit it, we have in-house forms that we fill out,
Those are in here already. Yep. So they're the commission disbursements right there, and whatever other in-house forms that we have, those are also in there for you to fill out and submit. And
Okay.
and then so all the forms, all your contracts, once it's all done, you think it's all good, you hit submit for review. Cynthia can review it all and get back if there's anything that you need to fix or approved, and all is good, and you can expect your check as soon as it's either at closing if you're with Cardinal, or as soon as we get the check in. So there's no problems. So everybody see a submit for review.
Upload the HUD one to her and say submit if you close somewhere else.
If you close somewhere else, then yes, you could do it that way. If you're going to close with Cardinal, then you can submit it ahead of time. We don't need the closing disclosure, but you can submit it as soon as you think you're ready, so that way your check's waiting for your Cardinal ready to go.
Cool.
Make sense? Good.
Awesome. Thank you, Donnie. Did you have something? No? Okay. Perfect. So yeah, we didn't have to move anything around. We didn't have to go collect things from all of our other accounts that we're using. Everything's already here for us because we use the loop to manage all of that paperwork. So let's say that everything was good to go with the listing paperwork. What's the next thing that we want on this property? Contract. Exactly. So I just so happen to have a contract from my good friend John Doe here, who does not use dotloop. He simply emailed me a PDF, and yes, I could download this PDF and upload it from my computer. Now I want to save some time doing that, so I go to my offer documents folder here, I click Add Document, and this time I'm going to choose Email. So I click Email. This long email address appears with a shortcut to copy it. So I copy that long email address. Then I go into my inbox. So I just have two different tabs open up here. I know it's hard to see. I've got my dotloop tab and my email tab. And I forward this email. In the To section, I right-click and paste that address. So we see that long address is pasted, and then we click Send. So this should help a lot of people who are very mobile, that use your smartphone or your tablet a lot, to where you don't have to find a way to download that PDF and then upload it. We just went and grabbed that special email address by clicking Add Document from Email, copy, and then we sent that attachment to that special address. Now, once we've done that, when I refresh my page, sure enough, there's that PDF right within my loop. Okay, so just cutting out some of those unnecessary steps. Now, if I have a multi-offer deal, there is the ability to add additional folders to any of your loops. So if I have two offers that come in within an hour of one another, I can add another folder to my loop, and I could say offer 2 from Jane Smith, received on 1/9 at 2:45 p.m. Whereas this folder, I can rename it with these 3 little dots to the right. Rename offer 1 from John Doe, received 1/9 at 2:30 p.m. So that I know the disclosures that I get, the offer that I get, the counters and amendments and addendums that I get from John are going to go into this folder. Those things that I get from Jane are going to go into this second folder. If the offer from Jane ends up being rejected altogether, we can go to the right where we renamed it, and we can archive that entire folder. Okay? So that it's out of the way, it's out of sight, out of mind. But if Sally comes back to me later on and says, hey, what was that offer that we rejected from Jane Smith? I'm not digging through my email. I'm not digging through all of these different things. I go to the one property address. I click Show Archive. There's that folder that I can go, use, download, look at, etc. So it is always going to be there for us. So let's take a look at this PDF that we emailed in from John. And we see that John doesn't know how to use a scanner. So we're kind of upset with him. So instead of calling John and telling him how we feel, we're printing this out and rescanning it. In dotloop, I can go up to File, and I do have the option of rotating this a page at a time or by the entire file at a time. So I'm going to rotate this page twice. So now that should be upright. And we'll do the second page as well. Now, if we had to scan in legal size paper, or maybe the entire PDF was upside down, I do have that option of rotating the entire file. Okay? So you do not have to do it a page at a time. The other thing I picked up on is this PDF is multiple documents. Instead of John separating these so that I can stay as organized as possible, he scanned in the property disclosure and the contract as a single file. So instead of having to always work with both documents, even if I just want to work with one, I can go back up to File, and I can choose to split it. So I can choose to split this PDF. It's going to ask me how many documents this is. Well, this particular PDF is just 2 documents. There's 18 pages. Page 1 is the disclosure. 2 through 18 is the contract. It's 18. I think there's a blank page in there. And I just click Split Document. Now, as soon as I split that document, we get a confirmation these have been split. When I go back to my loop here, sure enough, I have my seller's property disclosure statement and my contract separated out. When I click on the contract, it is just the contract. Okay? So if we go full circle from I have a client that doesn't want to e-sign, or I have 2 clients that share an email address, and we end up printing out the entire listing packet, when it's all signed, scan it into your email, which most of our scanners do, forward it into the loop, and chop it up so that it's easy for me to work with and easy for Cynthia to work with.
So after it gets chopped up, does it appear on the list of all the documents that you had originally created automatically?
Yes. Yep.
Do you have the ability in dotloop to of 18 and swap it out.
Yeah, so dotloop, you can't swap pages. Technically, you can by splitting it and then reordering it within the loop, but there's not like a grid where you can see all of the page thumbnails and move them around. That is a big item on our enhancement requests, so I'm hopeful that will come to because we do get that a lot. There is a workaround for it that's a couple additional steps. There's a way to do it. There's just not a feature built specifically for it. And if you need to learn how to do that, definitely call up our support team and they'll walk you through that. So we have this contract here, and it's a PDF. Nothing's interactive yet. So with any PDF that you upload, when we go to add here, there's a lot more options for adding fields to the document. So we can add signatures, initials, and strike-throughs, just like an interactive form. But with this, I can also add in a text field. So we listed this for $2.5 million. John's clients are offering us $1.5 million. So we might counter that with 3. We can add in that text field, strike through that old price. We can add in an initial field here. We can resize it with the bottom right-hand corner. Again, any signature or initial field that you add yourself, it does need to be assigned to that person that's signing. So we're going to say Sally Seller will sign there. We also have check boxes. If you're unsure what a radio button is, a radio button makes it to where that person or you can only choose one of those options. So we see here there's 2 options. I can only ever select one. So that somebody can't say that they do and they don't agree to something because they're not reading it. They're just going through checking off whatever they see. So we've countered this. We put an initial for Sally. We could add in initials for the buyers as well. But then we also need to initial these different pages. So,
Can I ask a question? Sometimes I make a mistake, or they'll say that they want to change something. And is that when you say resend?
After you make the change, you do need to reshare.
Reshare.
Yeah.
I don't have to void the first one?
No.
Because in DocuSign, I had to void the first one.
Right. So anytime that you update a form while it's out for signature or after you've already shared it with somebody, make the change and then you just share it the same way you shared before, and they'll see that up-to-date
And they just
version.
have to re-sign everything.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great question. So yeah, if you make a mistake on an agreement or you miss something on an agreement, you don't have to start over. You just reopen the same document, fix it, and reshare it out.
So then the second document instantly would take the place of the first time that you had done it?
Correct. Yes.
But both of them would stay on.
Both of them will stay on. You'll always see the most current version. So you'll see the version that you want to see, right? But if you need to go back and see historically those other versions before you made the changes, every document has what we call document history, where you can go back and see the version of that contract before you changed the offer price from X to Y.
So when you're opening it up again, just so you wouldn't make a mistake if you're in a rush or something, so they identified by the dates, or how, so we don't...
It's identified by the changes you make. So if you just open a document and you don't make any changes, there's no new version of that document, right? It's still the same version, you just looked at it a second time. It's just based on changes that you actually make to the document. And if you want to learn more about document history, it's not, I don't get too into it during these type of sessions, but Help Center, search document history, will tell you everything you need to know about document history, about pulling out old versions, etc. So I need to set this up for initials. I've already set up one initial for Sally. Again, we're countering that 1.5 with 3. And any field that we add, we need to assign to that person. So Sally will sign there. Let's act like we have 2 clients, just so I can show you how this feature works. So this contract is 16 pages. I have 2 clients. It's about 30 different fields I need to add and assign to each person, right? That'd probably take about 10 minutes to set this up. Now with dotloop, we came out with a new feature based on some feedback. So again, we do listen to your guys' feedback, I promise you that. And the feedback was you should be able to copy and paste these fields. So sure enough, we gave you the ability to highlight these two fields. At the bottom right of your screen, when you're looking at documents, you'll see different hotkeys to save the document, to delete fields, to copy fields. So I'm going to use this one here to copy my fields. And once I choose copy, let's try to zoom out again to show those. Bottom right-hand side again, I now have the option to paste the fields. So what I'll do is I'll scroll down to page 2, use that paste option. Those same fields are following my mouse. I place them. They're exactly the way that they look on page 1. Right? So instead of adding 30 fields, I set up the first page, I copy them once, and I paste them throughout the other 16 pages. So hopefully that will also save you time in setting up PDFs that you receive from outside of dotloop, or if you prefer to fill out your forms in zip forms and then move them into dotloop, this should also help set those up for signatures if that's something that you want to do.
Do that one more time to show us how you do this.
Yep. So you just highlight those two fields, and it's hard to see because the projector changes the layout of my screen or the dimensions of my screen. But to the bottom right in gray, we see these different key combinations. So similar to being able to copy by Control-C and paste with Control-V on a PC, you just throw Shift in there, and it allows you to copy and paste them. So that's a really cool feature that should save a lot of time anytime that you're setting up a document like this. So I know we're running really short on time. So let me add a signature field here. And let's say that Sally was in the office with us. She's sitting right next to us, or maybe we met up at Starbucks across the street and we wanted to go through these offers together. We go through Jane's offer, reject that. We go through John's, we want to counter it. She's sitting here, and now I need her to sign. Well, Sally says that her phone's dead, and she forgets the password to her email, and I don't want to waste time waiting for her to get home to sign this, and I also don't want to waste time printing these out or walking across the street to print them out here. So I can go to More, and I can choose this option of hosting in-person signing. So I click Host in-person signing. The system is going to ask me who needs to sign. So this is something that only one person can sign at a time because it still needs to verify that that person is who they say they are. So Sally, the seller, is going to sign. I click Continue. It says get Sally ready, hand over control of this device to Sally. Once she has signed, you do need to sign back in. So this will log you out, but it should be a lot easier for you to log into something that you log into every day on your own device than it might be for Sally to try to log into her Gmail account on your computer. So we hand over control of our laptop, our tablet, our keyboard and mouse, the same way you would hand over a pen and a piece of paper. Okay? We're giving her control of what she's signing with. Sally clicks Begin Signing. She's taken through that same process as before, except this time you're sitting right next to her to point out what she needs to do if she needs that help. So Sally's signing as she's sitting right next to me from my laptop. Now this feature is one of my favorites for a few reasons. One reason being that it's got that wow factor, so if you're at a listing presentation and you don't want to wait for them to get home to sign off on everything so you can continue with what you need to do, you can have them sign right within the office without having to go and check their email. The other place is if you ever go and look at properties with some prospective buyers. You might prepare a contract ahead of time, and when you get to the property, say, okay, do you guys want to make an offer? Great, how much? Okay, let me pull out the contract that I already started on dotloop on my phone or my tablet. I'll fill in the price, we'll pass it around, get it all signed, and then I, as the agent, can log back in and shoot that over to the listing agent. So being able to facilitate the signing and delivery of an offer without leaving the property that your clients are making an offer on could be that factor between them getting that and them not, right? Without this, you may have to say, okay, what do you want to offer? Great. Let me drive back to the office. Let me not get distracted once I walk through the door. Let me remember what you wanted to offer. Let me get on zip forms, write up the contract, move it into DocuSign, share it with you. You forget to sign it until tonight. You finally get it signed, and then I get it to the listing agent. You have them right in front of you, get them to sign it electronically right there, and hopefully they get the house of their dreams. Yes?
You can do all this on the app?
Yes, you can do all of this on the app. which you can download from the Play Store, I think it is for Android, or the App Store. I know we are out of time, so the last things that I want to close on, I know that we covered a lot today. There will be plenty of other training opportunities for you guys. Please note that. Secondly, hopefully you noticed everything that we did today was all in this one place. Yes, we had to go to our email a few times. I don't think there's any way around that. But 98% of what we did today was all done on this one page where we had everything. We filled out our listing documents. We got them signed. We were able to download them to save them to our own computer if we wanted to. We were able to submit them to Cynthia, upload PDFs, get them signed in person. All of these things were done on this one screen. No bouncing around from your e-signature tool to your forms tool to your storage tool, etc. The third thing I want to make note of is from training people for the past couple of years, I've learned that you're never going to absorb everything you need to by listening to me speak for 2 hours, right? Sure, some things were missed. What I recommend is as soon as you get into dotloop, play around with it. Do what we did here today. Team up with somebody that you like in the office or someone at home and say, okay, I'm going to be the listing agent, you be the seller. We're going to role play within the system to start to figure out how things feel, what kind of email notifications come to each one of us, where buttons are. And the goal there is to put yourself in a controlled environment when you're learning something new like this, okay? If I have no idea what I'm doing and I take this in front of a client, I'd say 60% of you guys will try to tool around in it. You'll have that client breathing down your neck, expecting you to be the expert in everything, and then you realize that you don't know where a button is. Then you get frustrated. Then you get stressed out. Then you start to overlook and overthink everything, right? That's going to give you a very bad learning experience with dotloop, okay? When I learned how to ride a bike, I had training wheels. I rode in the grass so that if I fell, I didn't burn my arm on the hot pavement. Think about that. You can create as many fake test loops as you want. You can sell your childhood home like I do for all of my trainings. Get that hands-on experience with it, and I promise you when you take it out with a client, you'll have no problem figuring out where everything is. So that's all that I've got. I will stick around to get accounts fixed if they need to, but thank you guys for the time. Hopefully you're excited. Excited?
Yes.
Okay.
I have an account question. I need to get mine fixed. I have 2 other accounts.
Okay.